Hey everyone, it's your girl Jenny, and today I'm going to be doing my September reading wrap-up, so go ahead and get cozy so we can go ahead and talk about books. You may have noticed that I completely forgot to do my August reading wrap-up, so if you are interested in seeing what I read, I will be putting a graphic at the end. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. In the month of September, I read a total of 6 books, which amounts to about 1,296 pages, and I had an average star rating of 2.96 stars. Yes, September was a pretty average month, and I felt a little underwhelmed with a couple of my reads, so we'll go over that in just a second. Like I said, I read 6 books. 4 of those were physical reads, and one of those was actually a library checkout, and then I read 2 audiobooks, and I had 1 DNF in September as well. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put up some quick graphics from Storygraph just because I feel like those are interesting to see as well. Let's get into the wrap up. So I started off the month very strong. I read Margo's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe, and I was so happy. So in the story, we essentially follow Margo. She is 19 at the beginning of the story and ends up getting pregnant by her English professor, and so we follow her life after she makes the decision to keep the baby. And honestly, she's 19 years old. She's now a single mom with no financial security and no support whatsoever from like friends or family, and that is all a recipe for disaster. She is put through it, okay, but she is strong, she is quirky, she is funny, and watching her grow and evolve through the story is just so empowering because I'm telling you, everything that could go wrong did, and she just kept going, and I really loved watching that. So for me, this was a 4.25 out of 5 stars. I do think that over time this is going to be rated higher in my opinion, but so far that is just kind of where I'm at. But I loved this story. Then I listened to the audiobook of Everything the Darkness Eats by LaRocca, and I'm not going to spend too much time here because this was a 1-star read for me. I had a lot of issues with this book, but I guess I'll just give you the synopsis. We follow 3 different POVs essentially. We follow Ghost, and he had a very tragic childhood, and that has kind of like really defined him as an adult. He is still struggling with this. And then we have Mr. Crowley, who everyone in the town believes is like this older gentleman type, but he is a villain of the story. He believes that there's like this being, and he is willing to do anything and everything for this being. He is a POS because people start going missing in this town. Again, they are all in the same city, but they're different stories, and they eventually do tie together. But we follow a gay couple who are experiencing a lot of hate in this town because they are very old school, and it gets very intense and very graphic. Okay, so I just didn't really appreciate how far it went and the messaging behind it. I just felt like maybe not made it feel so victim blamey. So I just had a lot of issues with this book. So for me, this was a 1 star, and that's very generous. And then I read The Love Song of Nathan Crane by Reyes, and this is a psychological horror, and I really enjoyed this one. We follow Nathan, and he is one of those guys that can't take no for an answer, and he makes it everybody else's problem. He falls in love with this girl at his school named Christine Romero, and she is kind of dealing with her own stuff, so she sees him as a friend, and he has become obsessed with her, and he spirals and cracks, and nothing and no one will get in his way of having Christine. So we follow as he unravels, and it's one of those stories where you are not rooting for Nathan whatsoever, but you can't look away. You're like, what is he gonna do next? That definitely kept me very invested in the story, and I just wanted to see his downfall so friggin' bad. This is one that I did enjoy, and that was a 4-star read for me. And it's another one where I feel like the rating is going to get higher as well, but right now it is sitting at a 4. Then I read Cuervo's Carnival by NJ Weeks, and I really wanted to love this one because I've heard nothing but great things. In the story, we follow 3 different characters. We have Lola, who is our main female character, and then we have Paxton and Killian, who are brothers. They are a couple, okay? And this is a dark MMF romance, and I do have to say that the spice was spicy, and we did get a good chunk of it, but I felt like other than that, I didn't really get to know the characters all that well. Like, we're supposed to care about them and get to know them, but I felt like we really just barely scratched the surface level of things. And there was something going on with Lola. Like, she has this ability and she didn't really get to tap into it until like later on in the book. And even then, it was just barely enough for me to feel satisfied. And overall, I just wish we had more plot as well, especially because they are tied to like a motorcycle club, I believe, and her dad is like the main guy leading it. So I really wanted to know a little bit more about the complex relationship, and yeah, I just wanted more story, and we didn't really get that. I feel like we might get more of it in the next few books in the series, because I do think there are more, but I'm just not interested enough to keep going. So to me, this was a 2.5, but I am not going to be deterred from checking out more of her work. I may not continue this series, but there is another book by her that has caught my attention, and I feel like that is up my alley more than this one. And then I read Something Truly Dreadful by Matthew Salinas, and in this story we follow Wes and his friends in the early 2000s. I think it's in 2001, and they have nothing better to do, so they decide to go visit this low-budget haunted house attraction that is geared towards kids, but they were like, you know what, we have nothing to lose, let's go ahead and check it out. The atmosphere is so creepy at the beginning, and these kids start getting killed off in this haunted house, and it is done in a very interesting way. And I have to say that the first kill, the first two, had me so hyped for the rest of the book, but after the first two, it kind of like plateaued a little bit, because there's not much you can do without it feeling a little bit repetitive, but that's exactly what it felt like. And then became a little supernatural at the end, maybe cosmic, I don't even know if that's the right term, but the ending was just not for me. So for this, I would have to say that the atmosphere was definitely there. Like, one of the scenes made me think of the movie Lights Out, so it really gave me like goosebumps reading it. But like I said, the second part just kind of like dragged a little bit, and for a short book, that is wild to feel. But I would still check out more of his books because the writing is there, the atmosphere is there, and I was invested until it became a little repetitive and rushed. But for me, this is a 3-star read. And then I listened to the audiobook of Thirst by Marina, Yuszczuk, and I was very excited for this because it is a vampire story. It is queer, and I believe it is written by an Argentinian author, so I was very excited to get into it. In the story, we follow two different characters, and this is split up in two parts. Part 1, we follow the vampire, and then in part 2, we follow the woman. Now, I believe both of them are unnamed throughout the entire story, except the woman may be named Alma, but I couldn't tell if that was her name or her nickname. So anyway, so in part 1, we follow this vampire, and what I really found interesting is that we also got to see how she became a vampire, but not just that, but like the stuff leading up to that, and then everything after. And she really went through it. She even lost her pack of women, and that was so sad to read about, because after that she became lonely. And so we followed her as she's trying to figure stuff out, and the world is evolving, the world is changing, and she just feels kind of stuck. She's trying to figure that all out, and she comes to the decision to just kind of not give up, but just take a time out. And then we go to part 2, and we follow the woman, and she is also dealing with grief, and it's different because her mom is currently sick and dying, so she's grieving her living mother, but we all know that she's dying. So it was really heartbreaking to see that. And she's also dealing with her divorce. Now, I do have to say that her ex-husband is very involved in her son's life, Santiago, so at least she has a little bit of support there, but she is just kind of dealing with this new life, you know, and she feels very lonely. And so that's something that both of the women have in common, both the vampire and the woman. So eventually their stories cross, and from there I just felt like everything was kind of rushed. And there was a decision that the woman made at the very end of the book that kind of gave me whiplash. I was like, what did you decide to do? I would have to say it felt really strong, but it did feel like part 1 and part 2 were very different books. So I loved part 1. Part 2 I thought was good, but it just didn't really fit what I thought the book was gonna be, and then again the ending just not what I expected and not what I would have wanted. But again, that is just my opinion. So for me, this was a 3-star read. In the month of September, I did DNF one book, and that was El Fuego by Rubin. I just couldn't get invested in the story or the characters, so I did end up DNFing that one. That was my September reading wrap up. I would love to know what you guys read, what you loved, or if you've read any of the same books that I did this month and what your thoughts are on those. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful October, and I can't wait to see what October has in store for us. I feel like October is like the perfect month. We get great weather and lots of spooky stories, so I'm very excited. Oh, and I will also put the graphic for my August wrap up at the end. So have a wonderful day, and as always, happy reading.